I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting. Operating and capital budgets for 2026 through to 2030, held and transmitted electronically via council chambers located at 39 South Shore Road, Lake Cowichan. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the unceded territories of the Subatsit First Nation. Is there any introduction of late items from council or staff? Mr. Thomas.
Yes, I am proposing two late items, both in-camera items. The first one would be Section 91E, acquisition or disposition or expropriation of lands if council so considers, and Section 91C, which is labor relations and other employee relations.
Thank you. So that would be in-camera portion tonight. Is there any other additions? Seeing none, I'm looking for someone to move the approval. Councillor Sandhu, seconded by Councillor Austin. Any discussion? All those in favour? Motion is passed. We move on now to public input. So if anyone would like to come up now and speak on anything on the agenda, which I believe with the budget would be almost anything, feel free to come forward to the microphone, hit the button, state your name and where you live, and speak on what you'd like to speak on. I don't know if you'd like to speak on something, mate. I can't say mate, can I?
My name's Michael Compton. I live at 80 Fern Road. I'd like to bring up Fern Road. It's getting quite dangerous up there to get onto South Shore Road. We'd like to see the bottom part opened up, take the concrete blocks out of there. At the moment, we'd like to see some gravel put in the potholes so we can start using the road. I think you were telling me they're going to blacktop it for $90,000. We're not worried about that. We just want to make it safe for us to get in and out of there. So that's why I'm here anyway.
So just to confirm, or just to clarify, so you're saying that you would like the end of Fern opened up, which is on the budget agenda tonight?
Yeah, I've been asking for it for a few years now and I get ignored. So, but it is unsafe. We've got twice as many logging trucks coming through here now. They don't slow down. We've got young kids speeding up and down there now. It's hard to get out of there, right? So if we can just get the blocks moved, put some gravel in the potholes so we can start using it, it'd be great. It's not going to cost much money. It's not going to cost $90,000 for a new blacktop, right? We just want to make it safe for the people that live there. So we appreciate it if you do something for us.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Do I push the button?
Yeah, push the button again. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. Michael, we've got another question.
Can I just get some clarification from you? So the reasoning that you're looking at and supporting it to be open is so that right now, as you come out Fern Road, if you're coming into town, it's dangerous to make a left turn to come back into town with logging trucks, etc. So you're looking at open it up so that you can come out the other end and down Point Ideal.
But not only that, if you're coming from town to go into Fern Road, that corner is really bad, right? It's really sharp.
Okay.
So it'd be nice if we could just drive down the road, go into town or whatever.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Don't have minutes. Business arising or unfinished business? Seeing none. No delegations or representatives tonight. No correspondence. So we'll move on to the first report, which is the 2026-2029 5-year financial plan, operating and capital budgets. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Council is aware, our Chief Financial Officer is away today, so I will be presenting the information to Council. At the end of this process, I am hoping to receive direction from council on what specific changes you would like us to make in order to bring back a revised budget for consideration, and ultimately a decision on when council feels ready for staff to commence public engagement on the draft budget, and then we could move forward with finalizing. Those are the steps that will come forward in the future. Before you, you have a draft plan that is the product and the result of multiple internal meetings with department heads, discussing not just the assessment, but also the operational requirements to fund the operation for 2026 and for the remaining 4 years of the 5-year financial plan. We also have in here a draft capital budget for the projects that we can bring forward or council can approve for us to bring forward in 2026 as well. I will start on page 2 of the document. Thank you. Here you have a snapshot of the 2026 property assessment initial report from BC Assessment. We have in Lake Cowichan 1,966 properties, whereas in 2025 we had 1,950 properties, which is a result of 16 additional properties. We have 1,842 of the folios that are taxable, 114 are exempt. The total completed or the estimated roll for 2026 is $1.126 billion for Lake Cowichan. In 2025, it is $1.103 billion, so a couple of millions increase. As is pretty clear on this chart, 95.4% actually of the portfolio that is taxed in this community is residential. We have very little utilities that are taxable, very little industry or industrial lands, 4.3% business, 0.04 managed forests, and 0.02 recreational. Again, the majority of the tax base of the community is residential. Any questions on that so far? Or thoughts?
Well, it's kind of a question, I guess, is all the years that we've been at this table, it was always 85% residential.
Yes, so the town is growing and the number of housing is growing, but the number of industrial lands and other components is not. So the ratios will change over time. All right, flipping to page 3. This chart presents a data set for other communities within the region. I'm not going to go through every community here, but the town of Lake Cowichan is seeing a 3% increase from 2025 property value assessments. Okay, page 4. This is a chart that presents to the community some information about how your individual property taxes may change. And it really depends on the average change of the property class overall. That may have a direct impact on whether or not your property taxes increase, stays the same, or decrease per year. This is often one of the most misunderstood process in terms of the mill rate, whether the property taxes will increase, and we will have greater information to share once council makes decision on what projects goes forward, which would impact what requisition we need from all sources of funding, including taxes, and then we'll be able to tell the public on a per thousand basis whether or not the property taxes will be going up, staying the same, or decreasing. Any questions on that so far? Seeing none. On page 5, we have a consolidated overview of our operating budget. There are 3 main funds that we manage. One is general, the second one is sewer, and the third is water. What you're looking at on this table is proposing a 0% tax increase. It's just showing you what the revenues would be in 2026 for all the classes of funding. And I will go through this line by line so that we have a comprehensive understanding of this, this document. For property taxes, parcel tax revenue, we're looking at $4.2 million. User fees and charges, we're looking at $3.3 million. Recreation facilities, $814,600. Conditional grants and transfer of $5 million. This conditional grant is particularly around the Sewer Lagoon project that is ongoing and the grant the town has received from the federal and provincial governments to fund that project. The unconditional grant of $476,000 is the small communities grant that municipality receive from the province annually for its operation. So this is an amount of money that could be used any way mayor and council sees fit. Our total revenue is estimated to be $13,857,330. Is there any questions on the revenue so far? Would you like me to proceed?
So sorry, we're saying that's the revenue that we're pulling, but we're actually pulling from some grants that are in our reserves at the moment.
That's correct.
So it's not all through taxation or parcels. We are actually pulling from other revenue sources.
The majority of this, the $5 million, is coming from our grant that we have received.
From the
So
sewer.
this is not from taxation.
Yeah, thank you.
The taxation portion is $4 million, which is at the top, of $13 million. So the majority of the funds that will be revenues that are coming in are not coming in from taxes. Next, we have expenditures, and this is just a general overview, a global overview of the entire operating budget. We have administration estimated at $2 million, development services $541,000, protective services $1 million, public works transportation $595,000, solid waste $630,000, parks and recreation $1.2 million, treatment and collection, which is discussing water and sewer type operation, $1.3 million, for a total pure operating expense of $7.4 million. The total surplus before capital projects are contemplated is $6,379,630. Any questions? Move forward. Okay, moving forward. Under the capital budget, we're expecting to spend roughly $10,312,000, of which we're going to transfer in our operating budget. We're still planning on continuing the process of transferring into reserve, a practice that we have in place for some time now, and transferring out of reserve to fund specific project. That is not only good practice to maintain by transferring into reserve, but it also makes the accounting process easier at the end, so you can show the cash being flowed in, and you could also show the drawdown based on the requirements of the project. Equipment reserve, $965,000. Unrestricted reserve, $1,080,000. And transfer to or from accumulated surplus, which is again transfer from accumulated surplus of $2,223,000. And we're going to go into details for each of those numbers in a moment here. On page 6, this is for the general fund only, and I just want council to keep that in mind. As you will see in the red figures there, the revenue projection, again, tax increase is estimated for 2026 here, at 3% in 2027 to 2030. And we will show you later on in this budget options for increasing your tax requisition for 2026 for you to consider as well. So looking at the notes, the tax increase for 2026 and the future years will be set by council, will need to be set by council. Revenue estimates below are based on the rates in the financial plan bylaw, including the fees and charges bylaw, passed by council January 27th, 2026. So we're looking only at the general fund for 2026 at the moment. For taxes, we're estimating 2.9 million. Again, this is assuming no tax increase, so this figure should align with 2025 tax. Grant in lieu, 62,000. Penalties and interest on taxes is estimated at 74,000. License and permits, 132. Solid waste revenues are 518. Lakeview Campground revenue at 286,000. Collect is 528,000. Leases, we have a few leases. For example, the Catsa Clinic, the ambulance services here, 74,000. Interest on investment, 400,000. Historically, we know that this number could be higher. We have performed very well over the last few years in terms of the interest on our investments to the tune of around 500,000 annually. What drives this number, so if we have large grants like we do for the sewer project that has not been spent, we put that into our investment portfolio, and that generates a significant interest. As we draw down on those grants to pay for those projects, the value of those investment funds will decrease, and correspondingly, we will have a decrease in interest generated. Go ahead.
So year after year, we've seen this one outperform double, triple, quadruple. And what I've found it does is because we set it so low, we're looking at property tax increases because of it. But then we come to the end of the year budget and we're, $1 million in surplus. With the current investments made, and I realize we're going to be drawing from them, is $400,000 too low for this number?
Is it too low? It is possibly too low. There is nothing that says it has to be a specific number. If council wishes to increase it a bit higher, we can certainly look at that. That will have a corresponding offset on the taxation, but again, keep in mind, we will be drawing down from that quite substantially to the tune of up to 5 million plus this year, which will have an impact on our investment portfolio.
Because during one of the previous meetings, I did ask what we're projected to make and with the drawdown. But so is this number is higher than last year. So are we happy to keep it at this spot? Is there a benefit to increasing it? Is there, obviously, if we don't hit those targets, it puts us in trouble. But I guess without firm numbers and the CFO being here, we can't really estimate that, can we?
I don't think the CFO would be in a position to estimate that either, because no one really knows what will happen to the market. We could keep all the monies in there and the market could go into full-blown recession, which will still result in lower performance anyways. So this is a real arbitrary figure, really, based on past performance. Yes, we have historically put $200,000 in there. We have doubled that for this fiscal year. And again, we don't know how quickly we will be drawing down on those funds for that sewer project in particular, which is quite sizable. But if council wish to put a different figure in there, we can absolutely do that. No? Okay. Conditional transfer, we're projecting revenues of $605,000. Fire department CVRD contribution $450,000, so a total revenue here on the general fund for 2026 of $6,578,000. On the expense side,
Sorry, can I just stop you on revenue?
go ahead.
So obviously, I asked a question yesterday about other revenue because we have gone, I think we're at 68,000 last year, so we're trying to get clarification on why we've reduced it. And then if there is parking revenue brought into this, would that be under other revenue as well?
Sorry, take that back at the top.
So at the top, so last year I believe that we brought in around $60,000 in other revenue,
Okay.
and we've decreased this to 28,000. I know that we're waiting for clarification on what that is.
That's correct.
If we were to add parking revenue to this, would that go into other revenue and affect this bottom line here?
It could. We would have two options. We could either create a new line item to recognize the parking revenue separately. A matter of fact, that might be my recommended course of action. Or we could put it under other revenue and have a notation that that's where it's being housed or coded to.
Okay, So do you need direction to, I guess, clarify the other revenue and where to place the parking?
Yes, we could certainly do that.
Anyone would like to add to that?
I was just gonna say, we haven't even gotten to the parking thing, so I don't know why we're talking about this when we haven't even passed or not passed. We don't know.
I guess I'm looking at it as at revenues, and I don't want to see anything missing in this top line. So we don't know what other revenues are, but it's been decreased from 2025. So we're looking for clarification on that. And if we are to make a decision regarding what is already in the budget on parking meters, which we have allowed for in 2025, I'm saying it's missing. So if we're budgeting for parking meters in this budget, there needs to be a corresponding revenue so we can, when we speak on the budget item of $45,000 for meters, we need to know what the return on investment is. So that's why I'm asking for it to be in here.
So can I?
Yep.
So where the other revenue, could that possibly be from the, what do you call it, the sewer, sandy dump? Could that possibly be where this money has come from?
It is possible.
And so I think what Councillor Frisbee is asking for is, can we have separate line items? So if one happened to be sandy dump revenue, the other one would be boat launch revenue, parking revenue, so that when we make decisions, we know what we're making for revenues versus what we're spending.
We can certainly do that. That's
Good.
a small change in our chart of accounts and adding those particular line items.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be standing up because it's at $38,000 last year. So again, I guess we have to clarify it, but I'm just making sure we've got all our revenue in here. We can move on if council wishes. We're moving on.
I made a note of it. We will reflect where exactly parking revenues, if council wishes to proceed with that, will be housed. But there's a decision, what Councillor Sandu was saying is there's a decision that council needs to make at some point, whether we will move forward with a parking program of some kind that will have corresponding expenses and corresponding revenues. And you're saying you'd like to know where it will be housed.
Not so much, but if you have a budget item of $45,000 for parking meters, there should be a corresponding income for that.
Agreed.
And so if we're presenting a complete budget, that should be in there, is what my point was. We'll move on.
Going into expenses or expenditures on same page 6 here. So we're looking at general government at 1.5 million, fire department, which council has already approved, 1,031,700. Development services, 541,000. Public works, 595,000. Solid waste, 630. Parks, 405. Lakeview campsite expenses, 264. CLEC expenses, 548, for a total of 5,579,700, with an estimated surplus of $998,980, all before capital. This is again separating operating from capital. Our capital expenditures under general fund is estimated about $3,762,000. We're going to be transferring in $336,000. We're going to transferring from reserve $2 million, and I'll explain why. And transfer from surplus. So again, reserve and surplus are two different accounts. Just keep that in mind. Of $1 million, and again, I'll explain why later on. Any questions on the global overview of expenditures for 2026 here? Seeing none. Page 7. There's a note here, the 2025 year-to-date actual numbers have not yet been finalized. That would certainly be done in time for the audit and will change as a result of year-end and audit adjustments. So please keep that in mind. And this is just a point-in-time snapshot. So for one of the key assumptions for the general fund was that the taxes for 2025 will be the same for 2026, 0%. There will be a time later where council gets to decide if that changes or not. So taxes still the same as 25 for 26. Grant in lieu, roughly the same. Penalties, you can compare and contrast. Penalties, we're budgeting 74,000. We had 101,000 in 2025 year to date, and we had budgeted 60,000 before, so that's slightly higher. Business license, we are budgeting 23,000. 2025 actuals was 26,000, so that's an opportunity here to perhaps adjust that if council so desires. Building and other permits, we're budgeting 112. 2025 year to date was significantly higher than that, and it seems 2024 was also much higher than the 50,000 budget, so that's also an opportunity for council to adjust should you wish. Dog tags stays roughly the same, 3,100. Interest on investments, again, we have historically budgeted 200,000, and we have exceeded that repeatedly. But if you look at the 2024 and 2025 actuals, the trend is heading downwards, not up. So just keep that in mind. And with the further drawdown on those reserve balances, we're expecting this to be lower. Fire department to CVRD, we're budgeting 450, which is consistent with previous years. Garbage revenue, we're budgeting 518. This is being driven by increased fees in our some of our garbage collection rates, I believe, Mr. Sandu. Is that correct? Other revenues, again, we'll get back to council on what the other revenues are so that we have clarity. The ambulance lease stays the same. Public health lease, which is CATSA, is significantly lower than normal. There is current discussions on the way, which may see that change in the near future. And this is also tied to some of the investments planned or proposed to council in the capital budget. Lakeview revenues, slight increases. Again, council had adjusted the rates for the campground, so that's fine. 476,000 for unconditional transfers. This is again money coming in as revenue from the province. Conditional transfer of 385,000. Conditional transfers are related to grants and things like gas tax. Fire Smart Community Grant, we have received a grant for this particular program, and we're just financing or spending that money. The grant for the visitor center is 20,000. Again, that's consistent with previous years. Total revenue $6,578,680. Should I move on expenditures? This is only for general fund, keeping on the expenditures. We're expecting 1.5 million for general government, which also includes things like elections and other costs that we will go down in details about. We're drilling down. We start at 30,000 foot and we're drilling down into the budget. Fire department, 794,000. Fire department grant expenses. This is a flow in and out. This ties back to the Fire Smart program for 200,000. Lease expenses, 37,000. Public Works Administration, 115. Again, Public Works Administration is slightly higher, but that is in line with 2024 figures. We did have a bit less staff in 2025 than we were hoping. Public Works roads, 480,000, also in line with previous years. I'm not sure why Public Works equipment charges are listed the way it is, but I can certainly find out for you. Garbage expense, 630,000, in line with previous 2025 figures, plus some cost increases. Development services expenses, 541,000. A big factor in this particular program is the increase in costs related to staffing for a director of bylaws and development services, which we will discuss later on as well. And we're doing a lot more in building inspection, bylaw enforcement, planning and development services files. Visitor Information Center, 55,000. Park, 350,000. CLEC expenses, 548,000. Again, consistent with previous decisions the administration and council has made in terms of cost increases. Lakeview Park, 259,000. Roads, 259, sorry. Lakeview Road, 5,000. This is just to maintain the roads. And a total expenditure of 5.5 million. I mean, we can continue everything line by line, or I can highlight certain areas up to council. Line by line, up to council.
You want to start at the top with expenditures? Want to go back through it? Yeah, we can go. Oh, I just got one question on lease expenses. So is that
Sure.
because we've got to replace a roof on one of the buildings?
Under lease expenses,
Yeah.
hang on, let's find that. Yes, do you have any comments on the lease expenses?
I think I remember somewhere it being stated that we needed to replace a roof on the ambulance.
At the ambulance, yes.
So that's the increase there. So it
That's
wouldn't be
one.
under capital, it would be under lease expenses.
So in order for something to be capital, it has to reach the threshold set by the tangible capital asset policy, which I believe is 10,000 or greater.
Okay.
If I can just add something, you may have seen that under the CLEC expense for replacing one of the roofs that we're getting looked at.
That wouldn't be a lease thing though, would it?
No, but
No.
I just, that was a $10,000 figure. So.
Okay.
We could also verify that and bring it back to council, so we'll make a note of that if that's okay.
Yeah, I guess that would be one of the questions is the increase in the lease expenses and, yeah.
Would it be the work that you're doing at the CATSA Health Unit?
No, that's in a separate area.
Okay,
Yeah,
because it's a lease. But
thank you. We'll get back to you on that one. Under capital projects, so for the general fund only, we're looking at 3.7 million in investments being made. Transfer to reserves, 336,000. Equipment expenses, 965,000. And again, these large figures will be broken out in the capital budget in greater detail. Unrestricted reserve, 1,080,000, and transfer from reserve of 1,054,000.
So, if I'm reading that correctly, at a 0% property tax increase, we are drawing 1,080,000 from unrestricted reserves
That's correct. To
That's
fund capital projects.
to fund capital
Yes.
projects.
Our general operating, we're balanced.
Yep.
To fund the capital projects, we have multiple options. We could use reserve funds that they're built for. So if we have a big sewer project and we have a grant and we have some reserve funds built for that, we could use that. Or you could tax the public for that. That is a choice council has. But we'll get into the detail for why we're spending those funds on the capital projects, and you can decide to either maintain, push it forward in the future, or cancel those particular projects as a council.
So currently, we're going into the piggy bank for 1.08 million.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Page 8. In the past, you would receive a capital program that just lists the projects and the expenses. This year, we're taking a different approach. We are listing the projects, the departments, the expenses, the project cost, and how we're funding it. The how we're funding it part is listed out in blue, and that is beginning on page 8. Okay, so we'll start at the top. We have identified some projects that are carry forward, which we'll talk about in a moment. We have identified some projects as optional for council to decide if you wish to move forward with them or wish to not move forward with them. And we have identified some projects that have been placed in the budget that are deemed essential for 2026, some of which we'll go through here tonight. So a carry forward project from 2025 was bell tower railing and window renovation. Do you need details about what is planned for that, or you just wish to move forward?
If we have details, I'd love them shared.
Bell tower.
Bell tower.
Yeah.
So last year, we did the painting of the bell tower school, and we discovered there were some railing issues on the handicap ramp and the front entrance. It's rotten. The windows, so that's one of the railings stuff we got to do. And the windows, if you go by there, the old plexiglass that's on there, they're very discolored and yellow. So that was, we can do that this year, or we can leave it for another year. That was the budget was around, we had around, we've taken it out. I think it was in around $30,000 to do all the plexiglass and the railing repairs.
So just to clarify, so the optional capital budget, optional capital items are actually included in this general fund capital expenditures?
No, they're not. So they're listed, but there is no value attached to them.
I see.
If you decide to add them as a council, we will simply plug in the value and then tell you how we could finance it.
And then for clarification on the bell tower school, so last year we did budget for this,
We did.
and it didn't, no.
We never
didn't go forward.
completed it. That's why you see the 70,000. We did the painting and then didn't get to the rest of it.
So out of that 70,000, we're now looking at 30,000 for windows and railing. So has there been work done on that 70,000?
The painting, let me think on that.
So the carryover figure might be less than that.
Yeah,
Okay.
70 is carried over from last year.
Yeah.
But
But we
it's
would
an
have spent
estimate.
some of that.
Yes.
Okay.
What you're asking for is a report on how much was spent in 2025 on the bell tower, is what I'm hearing.
So I'm just trying to figure out how we've got this stated. So when we talk about budget carrying forward, would we not carry over the unspent money?
So if the money is unspent by December 31st, it effectively goes back into surplus.
Yep.
And you can continue the project or the next phase of the project, if there is one, and use that money that's already in surplus to fund that. Or you can choose to defer that to a different year or not move forward with other phases.
I guess what I'm asking is if we had $70,000 budgeted for the bell tower, but we have used some of that money, that number shouldn't be 70,000 though, should it?
No, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're asking for the balance that was.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
looking through the carryover amounts.
Correct. It's listed as 30,000
Yeah.
because that's what was estimated might be required for 2026 if the project continues.
Okay, thank
But
you.
what you're asking for is how much was spent in 2025, and that figure will get back to you.
To the actual carryover. And then
Yeah.
just looking ahead, I guess that's going to be the same throughout. It's what we had budgeted
Yes, so
for.
Budget-
Anyway, I guess we're going to go through line by line.
we will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next item is, sorry, is there another?
Councillor Vermarker?
Can I ask a question on the bell power tower, because this is optional capital? And so obviously, the ramp would be a safety concern to our superintendent?
That's correct. The railing on it. So, and if you choose not to do this under, the whole thing under capital, the railing I can do under my operational budget, the repair the railing.
Because it's obviously a necessity
That has to be done.
for liability.
The windows are quite optional, but the railing has to be fixed. So.
And so the windows are more a preservation of the building?
Yeah, and appearance, it just, they're over time, they've just yellowed, everything's kind of discolored.
So is it actually impeding the heating in that building?
No,
Okay, so it's just the look
It's more
and
appearance.
preserving it, appearance,
maintenance,
okay.
appearance, yeah.
Okay, but the one is a necessity. Thank you.
Just on that, CC, so we've got the optional capital items. So the $30,000 for the bell tower school is just for the windows. The railings would be operational.
The 30,000 was all inclusive,
Okay.
but it's actually a little bit under 30 and rounding it.
Okay,
But
but that's the figure for
I
everything.
can do the railing under operation.
Okay, thank you.
Next item, computer equipment upgrades. So we have a number of systems that are of a certain vintage that requires updating, and we're estimating a $30,000 investment is required to protect the organization from cybersecurity attacks and make sure we're in tip-top shape. This actually came forward from a report from our IT provider that highlighted the investments that are required. Seeing no comments, the next item is the emergency operation. Sorry.
To say, so the 30,000 you're asking to be taken out of the COVID grant, which was roughly 76,000.
That's correct. One sec. I'm just going to look back into the reserve report that was provided to council in January. So in the January report that was brought forward, we had $59,472,000 left. You're welcome. The next item is the Emergency Operations Center generator. We have budgeted $120,000 here. We have $90,000 coming from the Community Works Fund, also known as gas tax. We have $30,000 grant dependent, as we have applied to UBCM for a grant. That package has been submitted by myself. And that's how we're planning on financing that particular project. Any questions on that?
If we aren't successful with that grant.
If we're not successful, we will come back to council and ask for a reconsideration if the additional 30,000 is like super needed.
Could, if we don't get the grant, could the funds for it not come out of the reserve for the town office?
Absolutely, yes, it can. So what would happen if we do not get the grant? I will come back to council and say, hi council, we have tendered the project, we have received the quote, we would like to move forward with the quote. We did not get the grant. Can we, A, amend the budget? So you have to amend the document you're passing. B, I have to identify the source of funding for that particular expenses. So in this case, I might identify this building because this is where it's going to come. And C, that you're directing us to move forward with it. So that will come back to council.
So I guess a change in procedure is that we're seeing where the money's coming from. So if that situation changes of where the money's coming from, then it would come back to council.
100%.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is CATSA Health Unit. So over the last few months, the director or the superintendent of Public Works and I have been meeting with facilities management with Vancouver Island Health Authority to discuss the upgrades necessary at the CATSA clinic. Council may recall that a few months ago, several members of the public came forward and raised concerns about the state and usability of the facility. We have done an on-site inspections. We have done lots of discussions with them. We have a list of items of deficiency that requires remedial action. And we have gone ahead and gotten quotes to have that work done in 2026. And I would invite our superintendent of public works to speak a little bit more on that, if you will, please.
So speaking with Island Health, there's been a couple of different options. One is some renos to the existing building, and they're possibly looking for 2 extra office spaces as well. So there's an option where we take the large waiting room and we divide it into 2 spots, or we add on to the building. So I've looked at both ways, and I've talked to Island Health now, and I've given them the numbers, and they're gone back to their board and council to decide what they want to do. Whatever this is showing, it's going to cost $250,000. They've also been within 5 years. We want those funds recovered in our lease payments. So this is, we put the money out as the town, but we up our lease, so we get that money back in 5 years.
Councillor Austin.
I think, I did talk to the CAO about this at one point too. I know you're dealing with Island Health on this, but that waiting room is used for lots of different things. Just, I don't know what they're going to come up with, because they have different management levels that don't work out of that building. And we use that for COVID, we use that for, like today, it was pretty full with just some of the kids and parents, and it's also a waiting room for all the doctors, the doctor and the nurse practitioners. So I'm just saying, from my point of view, having been there for a long time, that's not the right room to take. But there is that room in the middle, you know, there's a couple of different middle rooms, and I think some of the people there were saying that the coffee room could be moved to the far back corner, that little tiny room, far left, and things like that. So I don't know. It's just that we do sort of need that room because there's nowhere else for people to sit and wait when they're waiting. We had 2 nurse practitioners and the doctor in today, so it was pretty full. Just so you know, I mean, I don't know what Island Health's going to do.
Yeah, no, I've talked to the people working in there, and I hear both sides. Some tell me it's doesn't get used much, and others tell me it gets
Oh,
used
it does
lots.
get used.
I've seen it empty, and I've seen it full too. So
Yeah,
when
especially when they're doing like the COVID vaccines, you can have 2 or 3 nurses in there and a whole bunch of people. Yeah, so to cut that away, I don't know what you would do.
Yeah.
So I'd let you know.
That's why the addition is the second option there. The front corner, we have enough room to put 2 office spaces in there.
So when you're presenting numbers to Island Health, you're presenting an increased lease payment for the options that you're putting forward. So it's not so much the total of what the renovation is going to cost.
What we did is we used the 250,000.
Yeah.
We told them that's what's going to be close to what it's going to cost.
Yeah.
And we want to recover those funds within 5 years. They'll sign a 5-year lease, but we want to recover those monies.
And those that 250,000 is based off quotes for the addition already.
Addition, yeah.
Okay.
I just want council to know that the relationship with the relationship for the CATSA clinic is with VIHA. VIHA has to go through their internal processes and decide what changes they would like to see internally in that space, because that's who they're the leaser of or leasee for the town for that particular building. There will be documentation of what the renovations will be and proper structure around project management before anything happens on that site. The next item is $10,000 for office equipment. I'm sure something is going to come up this year that requires that. As an example, we might need some chairs in the council chambers, but I'm just putting that out there. Town website, $40,000 for an upgrade. So we have a number of websites. We have one for the fire department that's also needing some love and attention. We have the town main website that needs to be overhauled. I know that some work is being done on or has been done on the CLEC website as well. We need to update and refresh the town's image publicly, and we're setting aside $40,000 for that particular expense.
Just on that, so we've been asking for a long time to get an email newsletter set up. Is this something that can be incorporated into the upgrades of the town website? Or would you need additional money to start a newsletter and email collection service?
That's a good question. So I've thought about this, and we have had some internal discussions with various companies that can provide that service. So where we're leaning on this is whether or not the town is ready for and should get a meeting management software for council meetings, APC meetings, committee of the whole, you name it. That provides different levels of access for staff, for members of council to see the agenda package as it is being developed rather than waiting until Friday when it gets put out. And also allowing members of the public to subscribe so they get notified when an agenda is posted. They get an automatic email. They can go and find the agenda package itself. if there is something, some public notice that goes up for development, for example, once we publish that through that system, they get an automatic notification. That's one option. That's a more consolidated option, and it would have annual costing of between $5,000 and $10,000. We can also do a simplified version, like a Survey Monkey type structure, which would be much more cost effective, but very limited in scope in what it could be used for. So we're still doing the assessment option for that, but if council wants to earmark some money for us to have that model in place, we could certainly do that.
Is that something that interests the rest of council? So can we have a suggestion on what we should earmark for such a service?
I would say 10,000.
$10,000?
That would be the top end. The options could be presented to council later on with demos and options, and you could choose from there. A project like that would take between 6 to 8 weeks to roll out. This is from my discussion with one of those vendors with whom I met last week. And so 6 to 8 weeks to roll out, lots of training involved for staff and also for members of council. And it will require integration directly with our website.
And that is the more complex one that you're talking about.
That's the full suite that has the option for agendas, minutes, bylaws, policies, all the public documents, plans, community plans, etc. for the community will be publicly facing. It will be effectively like a library for the municipality, easy to find, easy to manage. It will have a corresponding calendar associated with it. This is standard stuff for across municipalities, and I know that the previous administration was looking at those options previously. And eventually, I actually think the town needs this. I am now evaluating our preparedness to roll this out. I think it might be best to invest in the system, work on the back end to get it ready for the next council after the election to roll it out, because that having two systems now might just really throw things off for the organization.
So you're suggesting that we should budget for it in this budget?
It is not in the budget currently, but you should, if you wish to proceed with that.
Councillor Sandhu?
I'd like to make a motion to approve up to $15,000 for,
Meeting management software.
exactly.
Do you have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Vormarker. Any discussion on this? Councillor Sandhu?
Just going to say, the CVRD has a new website too, and through eScribe and that, and it's all of their, they've got a library button up. So everything is there, and it really makes a difference when you're trying to find something. It's quick and simple. So I think this is a good investment.
Absolutely.
No more discussion, so I'll call the question. All those in favour? That motion is passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Based on the document before you, we're estimating to spend $450,000 in capital for general admin. The next item would be for the CLEC, and I'd invite our fearless leader, Dalton, to speak to those items, if you can, sir.
I tried to keep the capital to a minimum. The flooring for $15,000 for the dormitory has been like 23 years old. It needs to be replaced. We could do without it, as usual, and just do another year, no question. But I think it would be a reasonable time to do it. The interpretive trail that you are well aware of, it's not a grant. There's no grant involved. This project, if it were to go ahead, would be paid for by Camp Yes, and we would receive the funds in advance if we decided to award it to a certain company. We just have sort of estimates at this point, but no quotes. We'll get 2 or 3 quotes. So that's an in and out, as has been explained before. The mattresses each year, just to keep updated, we try and buy enough mattresses. We have 100 beds in the whole facility, so $5,000 doesn't go a long way. I think it's a good thing that we should move forward on. And the $10,000 for the log cabin, Last year, we had to do a repair. We've had a situation where we have an awful smell in that log cabin, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. And we've had different experts come in, do different things. It looks like we may have to replace that whole roof. So we're still assessing that, but that could happen. And if it were to happen, probably would happen in May or June. And that's about it for capital.
Thank you. And the final item, which is listed on the optional project list, is the waterfront dock. Do you want to speak to what's involved in that, sir?
Well, waterfront dock, I was asked to look at the budget a bit closer for capital, so it's not, again, it's not a necessity, but we do need some improvement there, and a dock attached to the land that we used to have would be a good idea. It makes it safe, particularly for summer months, or about 5 months of the year. And again, that could be a project that we were to look at and get a partner to get involved and pay for half of it. And that was just a rough estimate from some of the experts, and that came in around $50,000 as well. So we eliminated that just to make sure that wasn't coming out of taxpayers' funds.
Councillor Sandhu?
I think that we should put the dock for the CLEC in the budget, conditional to getting funds from Yes Group. But I think it's needed. It's important for the facility, and
It would be a good asset. It may not be Camp Yes in this particular case. It could be one of the Rotary clubs that are also interested in contributing to the center. But in any case, if we were to get funding, I think it is a worthwhile project, if council felt that they had the funds.
So I'll wait to hear other people's before I put a motion.
I do want to clarify that on page 10, there's an error. It says, for this particular $50,000 item dock, it says conditional on $25,000 from Camp Yes. That is an incorrect statement. The $25,000 is related directly to the trail, not the dock. On page 10 of your package, just so you could scratch that off.
So this would be a $50,000
Coming out of one of
investment coming out of the general fund?
reserve, general fund, yes. Taxation, etc. If you so choose.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we put in the capital budget for the CLEC up to $50,000 for a dock.
Can you go on the
Seconder
record,
was Councillor Austin. Any discussion on this?
No.
Councillor Vormaga?
I'm just looking for clarification. So the 50,000 is for a dock, but without any additional grants from anywhere else?
No, actually, I would suggest that the town contribute 25 and allow me to try and source an extra 25 from one of our groups.
So perhaps then it should just be put aside until such time as we have somebody willing to come forward with that grant monies?
If you do that, you still have to have it in the budget for 2026.
And then, sorry, just for clarification, so this would be where the former walkway, it would be down there, or whereabouts would this dock be?
Okay, the waterfront at the Education Center for many years did have an area that was like a walking dock, and that was like 20 years ago. And then we've had just a walkway. It's not near the floating walkway, not there, only right in front of the Education Center. So we would have a gangplank that goes from the land to the water, and then people could source that. And I have to say, this is one of the things that complicates us a little bit. I've been trying to source and look at opportunities for a different kind of floating dock that are not very expensive, not a waterfront walkway, but a floating dock. In many resorts around the world, you'll see big rings around 8 feet, from across, and they're plastic, really safe, and that could accommodate the needs that we have at Lakeview Park and also the Education Center. So that's why, I think that if you consider some funding, one way or the other, I think that we should be putting some money into that, in those areas.
Councillor Sandhu.
So that floating thing you're talking about, can you actually stand on it? And like a few people stand on it, or is it one that you move and, like, it's not a structure
it's a
that
stage-
a wooden,
No, it's a stationary plastic float.
it's a float?
It's a float, and you have to swim to it. And what I've seen in different parts of many resorts, quite frankly, people congregate around it, they talk, and younger people may try and get up on it, but some of us in this room may not be able to get up on it.
So
It's,
one
it's
further
safe. So
question.
you can't dive off it or anything like that, and that makes it safer, quite frankly, but it's still an area that you can swim to.
So if you had to make a choice between either of them, because it won't be both,
I understand that. At this point in time, if I had if I had some prices on these floats, I think I would rather go that way personally, just for safety reasons. Less money as well.
So to clarify, the motion we have on the table is for a dock that would be solely for click purposes and click use,
Correct.
not open to the public.
Not Lakeview, only Clark.
Just the click. So it would only be people visiting the click.
That's correct.
With the direction from staff, are we happy to move on with this motion for $50,000? Yep.
I'll amend my motion from 50,000 to 25,000 as per manager of CLEC's recommendation.
Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Austin, second it.
Question?
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
If we put in 25,000, I got 25,000 from another source,
Yes.
it would work, yeah.
The budget item will still need to say 50,000, of which 25,000 would be listed as external funds, much like we did for the trails. And the other 25,000, we would have to ultimately come back to council and identify an internal source, either general fund or surplus or some other category.
Okay, so for procedure, we have an amendment on the floor that if we don't want to proceed with 25,000, we would have to vote down now.
If you put 25,000, that's what your
We
budget.
could vote down the amendment and go back to the original.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That motion's passed. Now we will move on to the original motion, which is $50,000 for the dock at the click. Any further discussion on that? All those in favour? Sorry, I'll just clarify. So it has to be at 50 for us to receive a grant for it, and then the 25,000 would come off that 50, but we can't set the project amount at 25,000. So I'll call the question again on the dock for $50,000 towards the dock at the click. All those in favour? Those against? That motion has been defeated.
That is correct. So what flows from this is we add nothing at this stage for the dock. Okay. Councillor Austin, is there a question? Microphone.
I just think it really needs a dock there. You know, we talk about the CLEC making money and having people visit there, and I've been there a few times, and I think that's important, but whatever happens, I guess we have to go with it.
This is just draft budget. As council decides what goes in, what does not go in, and you will have certainly opportunities to refine this later on, before adoption. Democracy in action. Next item on the list, we have Lakeview Park resurfacing campsites. Dalton, would you please speak to this? Thank you.
So resurfacing is a normal thing we try and do each spring, and we probably will go through that very easily because we don't want to have wet sites for campers because they're paying a lot of money to be camping with us. So I think that's about the only thing that I want to include this year.
Councillor Sandhu?
I'd like to see some more money put into it. Reading through the budget, I understand that Public Works is putting in funds to oversee the public park, or public beach at Lakeview. And I would like to see some improvements on the other side. Some trim, it needs a good cleanup. It needs a good trimming. And I think it'd be good for council to go do a walk down there, have a little site visit, and just kind of get a visual of it. And now's the time that we need to say, if we're going to increase the prices like we have for 2026, then we've got to kind of do some improvements. And it's up to this table to support this work and the cost associated with the improvements. So,
If I can just add to that, we do intend on doing some work like that in our operational funds.
you have very little money in your operational budget for that, so that's why I'm kind of being the voice of reason here at the table during budget talks, is because I think it's a little bit more needed than, in my opinion.
Councillor Vilmarca.
It's just a comment. So I go by what I see in front of me. So resurfacing campsite, 5,000. If I saw more wish list from the Lakeview campsite manager to say, okay, we would like to update this and this and this and this, it's easier for me to make a decision. Because if you are doing it, it's coming out of operational, we don't know that you're doing it or what it is or how much it's costing. So I think it would make it easier for us to support you in upgrading.
Well, with the experience I have presenting budgets to council over the years, I think that I've had to take any opportunity I can to improve things through operational. I don't want to sort of put a burden on council. I can see how the votes go. It's pretty simple. So I don't want to be putting a whole bunch of money and capital out there for you just to say, you know what, we can't afford it. And I understand that. You're in a difficult position. Simple as that.
Councillor Austin.
Well, I was going to say, I do agree that it needs to be maintained, and we were camping there last year. And again, you're putting the prices up, for a campground, and they sell out right away, the major ones anyway, the major sites. So I think we should put a bit more money in whatever we can do.
I don't want to belabor the subject, but it is maintained. And I did hear a comment from the last meeting with regard to that wave application, the comment which was made about being boarded up. For your understanding, we board the washrooms up for the protection of the asset. I just wanted to mention that. So if it doesn't look good right now, it's because the boarding up is done for a reason.
The question raised that sparked that comment was there upgrades done to that washroom that was budgeted the previous year? So were there upgrades done to that washroom? To the bottom one by the beach?
The bottom ones weren't upgraded, no. Because we looked at that upgrade possibility, and to get electricity down there when it's mainly daytime use, it didn't make sense. And so we just concentrated on furthering the renovations to the upper one that was done. And that's why it's left like that.
So that was what sparked that comment, has it been upgraded? And it was
no
boarded
problem.
up? Yeah. And then I guess just on the way the votes are going, I'm a big supporter of Lakeview because it's open to the public and it makes money. So I think that's, if we're talking about improvements to Lakeview and what we're being tabled, you might get some support with a successful business from my point of view. And I agree with Councillor Sandhu on maybe some improvements need to be made. I guess with Lakeview, I want further clarification on the swimming dock that was taken out. I know that you said that liability was a big one, but it was the state of it, a determining factor, or why was that removed again?
Okay, so the year before, what happened was there was a very near miss where a physician was swimming on that platform. It had been inspected in the springtime and it was fine, but the treated lumber that was used in that particular float It was rotten somehow, and someone fell through it. And two young men saved this lady who happened to be a physician. And we looked at it and said, "Oh my goodness!" So it was towed away, and they were looking at resurfacing it. But again, that particular part of treated lumber wasn't all that effective, and so we decided to just leave it off because it's like a $20,000 dock, and that's why I've looked at alternative, things that could be used in swimming areas, which are in fact a lot more fun than someone trying to stand up on a ladder, slip off, and in most public places they're trying to get away from that. So that's why it was towed away.
Councillor Sandhu.
I'm just wondering if before our next budget meeting in 2 weeks, is maybe council could either as a group with Mr. Smith and go to Lakeview and just walk the beach and just talk about it. Just get an idea, kind of, you can visualize what we're saying here. And also, I just want to say too, in past budgets, when when I brought this up about Lakeview and that, every year I bring it up. But the decision was made before it was even brought to this table. So there was no, staff didn't have the freedom to say to council, this is what I'd like to see improve. This is what I'd like to see for money. That was stopped before budget even started. So I just want to have an honest conversation to really look at it and say, what do we need to do, and have a plan the next few years. We can't dump a whole bunch of money in there, but we've got to have a plan.
So I guess from that, if council agrees, if Mr. Smith would like to add to his budget and would like to invite us on a walkthrough of Lakeview to assess that, he can do so. Is everyone happy with that? Okay.
I support that. And the $5,000 amount is not a capital project, it's a special project because it's below the capital threshold, but it is placed here for transparency, so council is aware of the investments needed. In the future, when we complete a asset management plan for the town, we will have a much more robust picture of the investments that will be required for all assets, including the CLEC. And hold your boots, because it's probably going to be quite expensive, substantial. I hope hold your boots does not. Anyways, get quoted later on. Under the fire department, we have $925,000 listed for the number 14 tender that's currently being constructed, and $40,000 for the compressor, both of which came before council previously. The compressor is funded under Community Works Fund, which is gas tax, and the equipment reserve, remember we had $900,000 from equipment reserve, $820,000 is coming for the fire department specifically. Any questions on that? Seeing none, moving on. Public Works. Would you so kindly do the honors, Superintendent?
Okay, so first item is at Public Works, we'd like to purchase a grader, used grader. We got several roads. The main one was, again, the campsite and all the way to the CLEC. As you all know, it's a very rough road, and it gets quite expensive when we have to hire equipment to come and grade it. And if we had our own grader, we can maintain it on a regular basis, so we don't have these huge potholes and stuff in it. And it would just, yeah. And then around town, we got several places, shoulders and everything we can grade. So it would be a nice asset to have. Well worth it. The next item is pay parking meters. And over the last few years, we've discussed it a few times. I've given you, at the strategic planning, I gave each person a package. I don't know if you had a chance to review that. If we were to purchase two parking meters, it's about $45,000 in the equipment we need. And I've done a few different scenarios on revenue. If we had 92 days of pay parking, 46 days of slow, which I used 100 cars, that would give us, at $8 a day for parking, it's 36,800. If we had 46 busy days at 300 cars a day, at $8, that'd give us 110,000. So projected revenue is 147,700 per season. In a worst case scenario, if we had 75 days at 100 cars at $8, that still gives us $60,000 in a season. Worst case scenario. I made a few, I think.
We'll make some copies for council here. These are initial projections. We will certainly be refining those numbers for council, but back to you, Jazz.
So for clarification, once those numbers are finalized, they'll be entered into revenue.
As projection, yes, they will be.
Thank you.
Actually, I got some copies.
All our numbers are what's called estimates or projections, right? On the only time we're going to know what actually happens is after the fact, actuals, year to date, etc., and we will know that by summer 2026 on the parking issue.
Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before Superintendent Sandhu continues his presentation on the parking, I would like for council and staff to think about it in two ways. One, there is a decision point where whether council moves forward with a parking program. And if yes to that question, the question is it 12 months of the year or seasonally is the second question. Separate from that, the question is, do we do it in-house or do we do it externally? In-house, meaning our public works staff, we acquire the meters, we install the meters, we have bylaw enforcement staff doing the collection, the ticketing, etc. We have to have a system in place internally, whichever method we choose, that follows up when tickets are not paid and make sure that our municipal ticketing bylaw and our infrastructure internally are in place to refer tickets to the provincial courts, for example, when tickets remain unpaid. That will be the natural course of action, or we are effectively writing off those tickets, as I believe has occurred in the past. Separate from that, if we are deciding to explore external operator for operating parking enforcement in the community, we still need infrastructure to charge users for the parking space, and we will need a contractor to be responsible for issuing the tickets, referring tickets to the courts that remains unpaid, and we're working with administration staff in terms of collection of fees and those sort of stuff. So I just want to give that context. Jazz, our Superintendent Sandhu, is looking at a model that talks about potential revenues and potential expenses and investment, but we also have to consider whether we're doing it in-house or we're doing it externally. Superintendent.
Okay, sorry. So, like I said, the worst case scenario, it's not on that sheet. If we had 75 days with 100 cars a day at $8, so we still have $60,000 of revenue per season. The other thing we're still working on is which streets we want to charge on, like we got South Shore Road, do we want to charge there too, or Lakeview or Wellington? And the ones I based it on was Saywell Park, Point Ideal Road, and the gravel parking lot on Point Ideal Road. The other ones would be posted 1 hour, 2 hour, depending on what mayor and council would like to see. So there's several different options, which I haven't completed yet.
So I guess for budgeting, this budgeting process, we've got $45,000 in there. The estimated revenue is going to be in there. So we don't have to come up with a decision over the next 2 weeks. If it's just a budget item, we can then get recommendations on how to proceed. Is the rest of council happy with that? That it's simply a line item that they can, that staff can operate within. So if we have a $45,000 expense, and then we have an income of, let's set it at worst case of $60,000, then it's a net, well, it's not a net zero, it's a profit. So, and then from that point, we can operate from there and make decisions. So I believe that we are proceeding with the budget on that line item.
Yes, and the budget, to be clear, is to purchase parking meters, which will still be required whichever format the town wishes to proceed with. I guess what I'd like to get a clarity on, council, is do you want to see in 2026 the town initiate a parking program? Yes or no?
So could we, because you've raised a lot of suggestions on how this operation should work, do we have to specify that parking meters are going to be purchased with this line item, or can we have it as pay parking of $45,000 for a budget item? Or do you want a decision made tonight on whether we're going to proceed with pay parking? Because a lot of my decision revolves around how it's going to be managed, because we don't want to see this as a loss.
If I understood your question correctly, do you, you're asking whether council should set aside $40,000 or $45,000 for parking program and the details come after, or the specific purchase of the meters? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm saying because we don't know which way we want to go with the parking program, we haven't got a fully developed plan.
Yep.
Can we, for the budgeting process, can we simply have $45,000 to a pay parking program, and then once it's presented to us, if we don't proceed with it, that money doesn't get spent?
That's how it would work, yes.
Okay. So we don't need to make any decisions tonight. We can just have it as a line item in our budget.
Well, your decision is changing it from parking meters to parking program. And the specifics of it will come later on.
Is the rest of, would anyone, I'll go to Councillor Sandy.
So a couple things you asked, like, do we want it yearly? Do we want it seasonally? And so those are something we have to think about and come back. Because I don't want to see our local residents paying paid parking, even in the summer.
Right.
So
So those are the nuances, and Councillor Frisbee touched on it too. It's about the management of the program. So like I said, Superintendent Sandhu and I are going to continue to work to refine on what options, what models council want to proceed with. Again, he is just showing you what are some of the potential revenues you can earn based on certain assumptions, which, to be honest, I would be surprised if we as a municipality lost money on parking in the middle of summer in this community because of the sheer volume of people that comes through here. But at the end of the day, we need to present council options. We need to present you scenarios based on each option, and then you can make a decision how you want to proceed. A big part of this will require staffing to manage, which we'll talk about later, and the infrastructure, that everyone understands what we're putting in, including council.
Councillor
Yes.
Wamaka?
And so in this information we're getting right now, one thing that sticks out to me is how many spaces, where are the spaces going to be? So if that came back to council, so basically you're asking us to put in the budget the 45 with details to follow.
That's correct.
So would it be fitting if we were to change this from parking meters to parking program for $45,000? Would anyone like to move that? Councillor Vomaka has moved that, seconded by Councillor Austin. Any more discussion on that? We'll call the question. All those, oh, sorry.
With
Councillor Vomaka.
further information to come, the understanding.
correct. Yep.
I'll now call the question. All those in favour? That motion is passed. You want to speak on the paving program?
Yeah, and the next one, paving, haven't put anything in the paving program this year. We think we'll just skip this year and move it on to 2027.
It's listed under optional on page 11, 10.
So there's the Maple Avenue paving budget that's been requested as optional capital items, but that is no longer going forward?
We're not going to do that because we got to do the water line in there first.
Okay, so that won't be in 2026 and shouldn't be considered.
The next one, Fern Road, Open Fern Road to Point Ideal. I guess that's something Mayor and Council of, there was a $50,000 or $90,000 cost to do that. If it was all paved, cleaned up and paved. There's a little bit of pipe work we got to fix, a couple catch basins and stuff.
Can I expand?
Sorry?
Can I expand? Can I say?
Yep.
A few months ago, council had considered, I believe, a parking variance within that area near Fern Road. The discussion came up about connecting Fern Road with Point Ideal Road, is it? And council we talked about when would be an appropriate time to actually discuss that specific project. We said we were going to defer that for budget. We are at budget. We got a cost estimate to connect Fern Road with Point Ideal Road, and we're bringing it forward as an option for council to either commit to doing it in 2026, defer it in a future year, or not do it at all. So we're looking for direction how council would like to proceed.
Just a question on this. So there was always discussion and understanding that the owner of the property at the end of Fern would have been on the hook for connecting these two roads. Is there any truth to that?
That was before my time. I don't know for sure. There was that little subdivision done there, but the road was never opened up. So for whatever reason, I don't know.
Councillor Sandhu?
How many residents live on that road?
That's a good question.
Yeah, probably about 6 homes
6 homes
and a church.
in the church. And is the church still operating?
To this point, they are, yes.
Okay. And so $90,000 is, what is the breakdown of that?
I believe 50,000 is asphalt, and the other was a bit of pipe work and gravel and prepping it.
So is there infrastructure that would need to be looked at in that area down the road?
No. No, it was upgraded when that little subdivision was done, so there's new water line and stuff in there. That section, there's a couple of catch basins that weren't completed. We'd have to complete it and gravel it and pave it.
Councillor Vomaka?
When you were talking about asphalt, is there a way to reduce the budget by allowing it to be graded and opened?
There is, but there's also the maintenance part of it, right? The potholes and everything, so then it would be just a maintenance program we'd have to have there.
I'm thinking for 6 houses and a church, 90,000 to pave that road is a considerable amount of money right now.
Councillor Austin?
Yes, I agree with that too. There are lots of other roads around here that really need paving, but also the traffic that will be going on to Point Ideal. I know there's only 6 houses there, and the church has a minimal bunch of folks that go there. But I just don't think it's worth it at this point to do that. I know they might say a safety issue, but I'd like to know I better not say this. I was gonna say, how many accidents have we actually had down there, you know? Yeah, touch wood. But, you know, it's money coming out of, that could be used elsewhere that's more important, I think, at the time. If you could just take off the, you know, the barriers and just open it, well, maybe that's a way to go, but not to spend a lot of money on it. That's my opinion.
And that is a choice you guys have. Move the barriers, put some gravel down and see what happens for a season. It's really a council decision.
I'd go along with that.
So, for context, because obviously I know quite a bit about that one. So the church is the food bank operates out of that church. So there is quite a bit of traffic there on Wednesdays of whatever day that is. Just for clarification on the commercial property at the end there, where Dry Dock Marine operate out of. So just so everyone's aware, there's a lot of big boats that have to go down Fern to get onto South Shore. So that's one of the main concerns, is the commercial aspect of it. To the best of my knowledge, there's actually an approved subdivision behind that property, right? With a number of sections that could come online.
Strata lots, I think there's 5 there, but there's some issues there with riparian zone and stuff, so I don't know what's going to happen there.
Councillor Vomaka.
So if there's a will of the table, could we have a report come back about what it would cost to open up the barricades and to gravel that road with a price, if it's the will of the table?
Yeah, I can do that, yes.
Is there any figure we want to enter now into the budget, or you'd have to go away and figure out how much that would cost?
15,000?
15,000? Okay, would anyone like to motion that we add 15,000 into the budget? Yep.
Why was the road closed?
I don't know.
Yeah, I've done some research on this and we can't figure out why. There are a couple bylaws that go back some time on the closure of it, but there's no specifics on what it was. But in the original drawings, it was meant to be an opened road. So to answer your question, we don't know.
We would have to research that question.
Oh, there's no motion on the floor. Would anyone like to motion that 15,000 be added to the budget? Yeah, you would? Councillor Austin would like to make the motion that we add $15,000 to the budget to open up Fern Road. Do we have a seconder first? Seconded by Councillor Vomaka. Discussion.
We not find out the history first before we try to budget to open it up? There may be reasons as to why it was closed.
We can certainly do the research, absolutely. It's a philosophical question you're asking, one better place for council.
So we can go ahead and make the motion to budget for it, but as long as we do the backstory of finding out legalities.
For sure.
I think there has been some research done and we haven't been able to find out, from my understanding. Mr. Smith?
Can I just make a quick observation? As far as boats are concerned, I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think Dry Dock is operating out of there anymore. But also, even if they are.
They are still operating out of there, yeah.
They are, okay. I tow a lot of boats. I've done so for many years. And I think it would much rather be safer to go up on that road. I wouldn't want to come on Point Ideal, tow a boat, try and cross left or right near the drugstore. That's a tougher tow, especially the size of boats right now, just so you know that.
Just to clarify that comment, so if you're coming up Fern and you want to turn towards town, you would rather make a hairpin turn than go onto Point Ideal?
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a question on the motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Sandhu is against, and that motion is passed.
Question. Just want to clarify, council has decided to add it to the budget. Is council also directing us to open that road. I just want to know if the intention is to open the road or just put it in the budget, get quotes for what it would be to gravel it and not pave it. You want the road open.
I would say to open the road after doing the research to
wouldn't
why it
affect
was
me.
closed. There may be a good reason why it was closed, and if it was, that needs to be made known to the people that live there. And if that's the case, then no. So that's why we just want to put it in to get this started and see what happens. And if it was closed for a particular reason, there's some danger or something other, there's always danger on both, no matter what way you're going there, it's going to be danger.
So there's money in the budget to research opening up Fern to be decided by council at a further date. After further information. Why are they laughing?
No reason. I appreciate the clarification. Thank you. No. My chuckle was more along the lines of, it's a good thing I asked those clarifiers because I don't want us to misunderstand council's direction.
So did we get that clarified now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll carry on. The next one we have in there is a Public Works office building. We did budget for that last year. We never did anything because of the possibility of moving locations. But John and I have been talking, maybe we should be looking at some modulars, and because even moving to a new location might take a few years, 2 to 3 years, and we should upgrade the offices, and we can always then move those up to the new site later.
Is this something that will happen in 2026? Is it realistically to be in the budget this year?
Completed? No. Started? There are some critical decisions that needs to be made. One in terms of location, one in terms of what happens with the existing building, and what the scope of the new building would look like. So we are working on the background on a more detailed report for council that presents various options for you to consider. But if we don't have money set aside in this budget, which is also a carry forward from 2025, then we would have to come back and change the budget later on it as well. That's why it's in the budget. Right?
That's correct.
And the funding for all this will come out of the Community Growth Fund? So it won't be on taxation?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Well, it's unrestricted reserve. And the community, yeah,
So in the notes it has,
I see that. Yes.
I don't know what oh, that's what we're referring to there.
In the staff report that went before council in January, the Community Growth Fund has a balance of $1,014,233. So that is also part of the unrestricted reserve. Yes, there are several different funds under that.
Thank you.
Jazz? Oh, sorry, council.
I don't have anything. Changing what? Oh, you'd like us to change the source of funds?
Is council committing the $800,000 to the project for 2026? And are you satisfied with the allocation for unrestricted reserve?
I'm unsure why we've been asked this question because are we looking to approve every line item in here?
Yes, we're looking for any changes council may wish to make to the capital budget.
The entire, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion on this? There's no discussion on this.
Sounds good. Next item.
Next item is land acquisition, so we've put 1.1 million in there for,
Public Works shed.
oh, we're not putting anything in there. We've
Okay.
Public Works shed, we've taken the roof item out of there for this year. And then there's the land acquisition. Next one is security cameras.
Could I ask on the land acquisition, just for where the money's coming from. So we've got 119,000 in land acquisition fund. Is there a reason why we're not using that and we're just going out of unrestricted? Sorry, in surplus
Surplus, yes.
and general fund?
Yes. It's because of the size of it.
So we can't drain that down to zero.
You can,
And why wouldn't you want to?
because you will still be going into the other source of fund anyways. So rather than doing two sources, like 100,000 from land and 900,000 from surplus, we're leaving the contribution for lands alone and going to the surplus funds to draw from that primarily, and the 25,000 from general funds. We can do the full amount from surplus. That's not an issue.
Okay.
Any changes? Is your hand up?
Councillor Austin?
Okay, the next one on there is security alarms and cameras in various locations. A lot of our sites do not have cameras and proper security systems right now, so we need to upgrade that. The ones that need upgrading and certain buildings don't have anything at all, and we need to get that. Been talking about it for a few years, so it's in the budget for 32,000. Sidewalks, there's various sidewalks around town. We've budgeted 80,000. One of the ones we're looking at is either Cowichan Avenue from King George down in front of the Cats of Health all the way down to South Shore, or from Stone Avenue up to the arena on the left-hand side of the road. Storm upgrades, Cowichan and Pine Street, we had 2 culvert failures there this winter. We have to get those culverts changed. We just put a temporary pipe in there a couple of days ago so the road doesn't collapse. So we budgeted 50,000 there. Valve exercise equipment, what that is, it's a piece of equipment that we call it exercising for all our water valves. It puts, it automatically turns them, and it tells us how much pressure it's taking to turn them, and etc. Instead of trying to do them manually, which is almost impossible. The next one, what do we got? Greendale Trestle. We got some decking that needs replacing there, so we put $20,000 in there for decking replacement. Pickleball courts, we've had some roots from the cottonwoods lift up some of the asphalt, so we've got to cut those areas out, get the roots out, and repave a few areas there.
Councillor Austin?
I was just going to say, the original folks that started the pickleball courts going, they put in $50,000, and I thought they were going to continue from time to time to put some money into a fund to maintain it. Is there any money left from that?
I think that money has been used up. There might be a little bit left, but so this year we're just repairing the areas where the roots have done the damage, and they're doing some fundraising, is my understanding, and they'll resurface the whole court again.
That's a good idea.
With
Yeah.
the paint and stuff.
It shouldn't be down to the taxpayers to do that, perhaps.
Yeah, well, there's different opinions on that because it is a town-owned park. Does not belong to a pickleball court. The town owns it, so.
And it is a personal injury risk matter. And just so council is aware, there are existing personal injury litigation files open and a health and safety matter. So at the very least, I'd suggest that the town care for the asset and have a conversation about recovering those funds from a user perspective. I walked the site today and taken some pictures that I am happy to share with council if you wish to see what it looks like. I just emailed it to our chamber's email. If you could pull that up, that'd be great.
Councillor Sandhu?
Are we doing a Band-Aid fix on the roots and that are coming from the trail side, from the far side? That's an issue on the far side where some of the flooring has lifted from roots. And then closer to the road, Mayor McGonigal and I had a tour a couple years ago with the president of the pickleball over the concerns of that. And so I'm just wondering if the roots will be, like, is there a way to remove the roots permanently?
Probably not. It's pretty hard to remove roots, especially cottonwood. They'll stay in the ground. They have moisture, and they'll just keep on surfacing, unfortunately. We have taken some of the trees down that were causing it, but hopefully, we'll get the roots out.
Are we able to rotate the picture?
No, no, it has to be sideways.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on the pickleball courts? Mr. Thomas, when we get to the end of this page, I would like to ask for a recess. Are we okay at this point to call for that? So we'll do a 10-minute recess. Do I have to call a motion on that or just do it?
As the chair, I believe
I'm
you
just
can
gonna
call
do it.
for a recess.
10 minutes. See you later. We'll get back into it if everyone's okay with that.
Pick up the pace.
Oh. Okay, let's get back into it. Are we live? We are live.
Okay, we'll move on to page 9. That's our sewer and water capital expenditures. Oh, sorry.
So, sorry, what were you asking there, Ms. Thomas?
Do we have a decision on council on the pickleball court matter before we move on?
I think there was no further discussion on that. We were proceeding. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, pickleball's done, so moving on to page 9, budget for water and sewer expenditures. For 2026, we, for the wastewater plant, the sewer fund, we have $6 million budgeted there for the lagoon upgrades. Lift station 1, 2, and 1, 3, and 4, we have $100,000 to do some upgrades on the 3 sewer lift stations. So that adds up. The sewer fund is 6.1 million. Water fund, raw water pump station, we've got $100,000 there. As we've talked before, we lost one pump earlier in the year, and we've got to do maintenance on the second one. Water design, we got $150,000 in there to design a water main from the reservoir down to the duck pond and crossing the river, which is a pinch point for our whole town water system. Water main upgrades, Maple Avenue, we have the design done, and we've got $200,000 allowed there to upgrade that water line on Maple Avenue. Total water fund is $450,000. Any questions on that stuff?
Councillor Walmarka.
We were talking about Maple Avenue earlier, so this is to take care of the infrastructure under the ground before we consider paving in the future.
In the future. We won't be paving it this year.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Roach? Ronnie? Camera.
Next, we have the optional capital items, which I believe have all been dealt with.
That's correct, according to my information. So the next page will be page 11. So this is the general fund for the 5-year capital plan. We've gone through 2026 in detail. If I would actually leave it up to council to see if you have any questions about the 27 to 2030 items. So any number, any item that has a corresponding number under 27, 28, 29, or 2030. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Any questions on this? Councillor Walmarka.
General fund?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, this one. So just question for a little more explanation from our collect manager on the new building.
For 2028?
From the response from some of our groups that we have now, it would be nice to get a little bit of upgrading because it's very difficult to accommodate some, I hate to say it, but higher end groups. You know, it's nice to have updated washrooms, et cetera. So a new building would be something to consider, subject to a grant application that would pay for it.
So an actual new building.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions on that page, Mr. Thomas.
Okay, moving on to page 12. We have the general fund expenditure review. So for 2025, comparative amounts have not yet been finalized as we have identified earlier. The 2026 budget numbers presented are draft and will change subject to council's decision, as you are aware. Page 13, I will, for the benefit of this discussion, focus on the budget highlights here. So for the general government expenses, the numbers that you see in the very right column, which has increase and decrease, would tell you how those numbers have changed year over year. And the reasons for them are council indemnities have increased to reflect the new bylaws that have been adopted. A key component following the election is to have council orientation. And we did set aside some money specifically for that initiative because having a good orientation sets up council for success, and having a poor one or not one at all sets you up for challenges. One of the things each council is required to do following an election is to confirm whether the code of conduct regime, bylaw, or policy, as it may be, is adequate or not, and whether or not council will be pursuing changes. We will, for this year, be looking at some updating to, for example, the council procedure bylaw and stuff, so there will be some corresponding expenses there. The 2025 office wages budget was increased due to staffing changes, meaning our receptionists and accounts receivable, our payroll and accounts payable, our bylaw enforcement officer and building inspector are all not working full-time hours historically. This has placed extraordinary challenges on our operational ability and our effectiveness in delivering service to the community. This budget presents all of those positions working full-time, and also is the case for our executive secretary who is not working a full-time schedule for the week. This budget reflects that updated model, and I do welcome council's direction on whether or not you find that to be an acceptable direction or if you wish to go a different direction. The next item is a contingency budget for emergencies. So things can happen at any time without notice. This specifically identifies $300,000. If it is needed, that's where it will be coded. Council will obviously be briefed on the use of that particular fund. If it is not needed, it remains in the operation and is not spent. Legal expenses have increased to reflect operational requirements. So the world is very legalistic and very litigious. We are doing a significant amount of covenants and other documents that require legal vetting, and we are reflecting that because this is what the operation requires. Data processing include IT contracts. So currently we do not have a contract for our IT provider. We use them as needed when needed. That is actually a much more expensive model, whereas if we had a contract with them, we simply don't have a limit on the number of transactions or requests for assistance we can ask, whereas now each time we call generates a service fee. So we have been presented with an option to establish a contractual relationship, which is substantially less than what we are currently paying on an annual basis. The election budget increase, again, to cover the election costs, and insurance cost increase due to higher asset appraisals and rising premiums. So insurance has historically, over the last few years, gone up significantly. This is not going to change this year. Any questions on that before I move on to page 14?
The Otaki expense, I see we're raising it to 15. I believe that's quite a bit too much. They're only here for 3 full days and 2 partial days. I'm okay for it maybe going to 10, but 15 is way too much.
This is just a proposal. If council wishes to change it, we'll change it.
Because we've looked at some of the costs over the years, and I think only once we went over the 5,000. And we do pay for just about everything. They're only here responsible for, I think, one breakfast. But do you want a motion then to keep it at no higher than 10? I make a motion that the Otakio expense be raised from 5 to 10.
Seconded by Councillor Sandu. Discussion on that? Councillor Vomaka?
Is the Otaki expense just for them coming here, or is it for our council and delegation also going, the expense of sending?
This year it is for hosting only. So I know that we looked into how they host us and what we can offer. So I believe this number is based on a similar experience for the banquet as well as hosting. So I think that's where this number is from.
And can I ask one more follow-up question? When they come here, I know that there were not enough billets for them. They were hosted in hotels. Were we paying for that, or was that their expense?
I think they paid, that was 2022, 2021? I think they did at that time, there were less people coming. I think this time you'll find that I sort of mentioned to the people that have been going the last couple of times, please, take them in when they come here, so there's not that expense. And as I say, we do pay for everything that we take them to, and
There is a motion. There's a motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion? Councillor Sandu seconded it. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favour of reducing the budget from 15 to 10,000? Against? That motion is passed. Just on discussion on page 13, I guess it's more of a statement. When we did go through the process of council pay, I was under the assumption that this would come into effect for the new term on the new council in October, and that's the way I was voting. So I wasn't aware that we were going to have that come into effect January 1st. So some of my comments made me look pretty stupid as far as when it was to come into effect. Thanks for nodding at that one. Anyway, I just want to, I truly did believe that it would be for the new council, and it was the way it was painted. And I think that I should have asked more questions, and I think maybe council as a whole should have been more direct with staff on when that was meant to be implemented. But it is what it is now. Councillor Ross.
I'll just say I agree as well, because right away I was talking to a former councillor, and they'd gotten the paper before me, and they said, "Oh, you gave yourself a big raise there." I said, "We did." So I guess we actually have always done it for the next council, so that's why I thought we were doing it for the next council. So anyway, again, didn't check carefully.
We'll move on from this page if that's all right.
Page 14, Fire Department expenses. Some highlights include wage cost increase, or include $70,000 for succession planning, again, with respect to the leadership of the department. The Fire Smart grant program expenses have been budgeted for the remainder of the funds available. This $75,000 increase has a corresponding CRA grant revenue. An additional $20,000 have been included for lease expense due to anticipated repairs to the ambulance section of the building. And one of the other changes that we have made internally is that one person has been designated the manager responsible for the administration of that building, and that is the fire chief. The whole building, not just the fire department, whereas in the past the administration of the ambulance portion of the building resided with the CAO. Now, the entire thing is the fire chief's responsibility, and working with me in conjunction to figure that out. Any questions on that?
Councillor Vomaka.
Do you know what the term of the lease is for the ambulance station remaining?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I could certainly research that. Ronnie, do you have that information by chance? The term of the ambulance lease.
It was a 5-year, and I think it was coming up. 2 or 3 years.
Thank you. Any other questions on fire department? Okay. This is also where the lease expense that was asked earlier is coming from, that $20,000, right? Page 15, bylaw and development services. Again, the highlight here is in building inspector, bylaw enforcement officer hours will be increased to full-time, an additional 1 day. A new position for director of bylaw and development services included in the budget, part of which will be funded by the half grant, and we'll get into a status of where that position is at in the future. Any questions on that? Seeing none. Page 16, Public Works Administration. Just some highlights here. The administration's wage increase in line with collective agreements and other obligations that the town has by $15,000. Small tools and equipment budget moved from capital budget. So again, if it is not meeting the definition of a capital project, it is in operating budget. So that's reflected here. Road maintenance budget increased to reflect projected wage costs. Public Works was short-staffed in 2025 due to various staff turnovers, and that's why you would see a noticeable cost change for 2026 of $35,000. And increases in tipping fees and recycling costs also reflected here. Any questions on this aspect? Seeing none, moving forward, page 17. Visitor Center, Parks, Lakeview Park, Campground, and Cowichan Lake Education Center. So the budget highlights includes $20,000 budgeted for Lakeview Park Public Beach added to the parks. So one of the other discussion we had internally was making sure functions are grouped together in a coherent way. Parks goes under parks, not some under parks and some under Lakeview or a different area, parks under parks. So the public beach is a park that is accessible to the whole public, and that's why we're housing it there, and we're budgeting $20,000 for that. $20,000 budget increase for parks at the Centennial Park repair and maintenance line item, and $60,000 budget added for collect to cover succession planning costs. Again, we need to have a coherent approach to succession planning, one where there is a handover, not where there is a break, because it's much more harder to function when there is a gap between leadership. We'll be discussing that job description. I will be discussing that job description with council in the very near future tonight, and we will be posting that position publicly soon. Page 18 is the water and sewer fund. So remember, we have 3 general funds. We have 3 funds, generally speaking. We have general, we have water, and we have sewer. We've completed general, we've completed capital. Now we're looking at water and sewer. Utility rates. I mean, this is a fairly easy slide. Is there any questions from council? Because this is driven by bylaw rate increases. And the utility fees bills have already gone out. So 4% for 2025, 4% for 2026.
I would like clarification. So, because when we do get into the weeds of it on the other pages, we'll talk about those increases and what they look like. I'm talking more of the budgeted for the sewer fund, because we're looking at bigger jumps. Because on this page, does that mean that we have built-in increases already?
That's correct. So those bylaws were passed before.
Yep. So I guess my question, I'm jumping ahead to page 21,
21. Okay.
would be, when we talk about these, we don't see those reflected?
It should be.
So we've got 325 in 2026 on the sewer fund, 325 on 2027, or are those increases not on the parcel tax?
Those increases are on the parcel tax, yes.
Are these increases every year, or why are these numbers not going up?
I did
Oh, so
print-
these are for, oh, because we have, this is just for 2026. So that increase is already shown on 2026 on the sewer fund?
Which page are you on, sir?
21.
On 21, are you talking water sewer rates, or are you talking parcel taxes?
In particular, I'm looking at page 21, which is the sewer fund. It has parcel tax of $325 in the budget.
Yes. And page 18 is talking about water sewer rates, not parcel tax.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So page 19. Any questions on this, or do you want me to walk council through this? So the utility bills have already gone out for 2026. We offer, I believe, 10% discount. With the 10% discount, the net effect would be an increase of $34.35, resulting in an annual bill of $917.57. Whereas without the discount, it would be $1,019.52. And these bylaws have again been passed previously, and I think it might be expiring in 27, if memory serves me right. Any questions on this? This is more for information than changes because the ballot is already in place. Seeing none, page 20, water sewer parcel tax. This is where the question came up earlier. So 2026 parcel tax for water and sewer remains unchanged from last year. Parcel tax bylaw, which was passed, and I did print it earlier, but I apologize, I don't have it with me. Let me see if I could pull it up. Can you grab it for me, please? Thanks. We're just going to pull it from the printer. Sanitary sewer parcel tax, bylaw 1116/2025, which was passed in February 2025, identifies $325. Water parcel tax, again, bylaw adopted in February 2025, identifies $350. Now, if council wants to change these parcel tax rates, you would also have to rescind that bylaw. Those bylaws is in place.
So
And we're
when
just
we
getting
are, when
copies.
we are looking at future projections where that parcel tax does increase, that will be contingent on a bylaw change.
It would, if it is not
That makes
captured
more
in the
sense.
current
Okay.
bylaw, which is just pulled up on our screen here.
So in 2028, we're seeing a $100 increase, but that would have to be a bylaw.
It would have to be a
Adoption.
bylaw. adopted.
Okay.
Thank you, Ronnie, for the bylaws. Thank you.
Councillor Vamaka?
Thank you.
So the question then is that if we wanted to have small increments every year to the sewer, the sewer parcel tax, we would have to change that bylaw every year?
You don't have to change a bylaw every year. You can, it would just be much more administratively burdensome. This bylaw is in place for a few years.
For the 2026
So
and
let's,
2027 budget?
yes, let's look at the bylaw that was just handed to you, for example, which is the sewer bylaw. If you could pull that up, Ronnie, that would be great. So the back page of this would tell us when it was adopted. So that was February 2025. The number 3, the parcel tax for Lake Cowichan sewer services. Council hereby increases the parcel tax levy for sanitary sewer service for the calendar year 2025 and all subsequent years. So this doesn't have an end date, to be honest. The town is to prepare an assessment roll for the Lake Cowichan sanitary sewer parcel tax roll to be used for imposition of parcel tax. The parcel tax shall be levied as a single amount for each parcel that has the opportunity to be provided with sanitary sewer service, regardless of whether or not they're being used, the service is being used. The amount of the tax shall be increased from $250 per parcel per year to $325 per parcel per year. So the max rate is 325.
I guess what we're coming to the realization of is we don't change the parcel tax or any of these aren't like property tax where we do consider them at every budget.
That's
It has to be its own bylaw.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So the reason I brought it up was because we're budgeted at 325, and then we do a drastic jump to 425.
Yes.
It
And
would
it
have to be a
stays,
bylaw change.
and so, yeah, that's why I was asking, do we have to do a bylaw change every year if we wanted to do, say, $25 increments?
You don't have to do a bylaw change every year. You could do one bylaw that prescribes the increase going forward. But how this bylaw is currently structured, for the sewer in particular, it's saying from 2025, it would increase to a maximum of $325 forever until council changes that. And you could do that at any point for the following year.
Okay, because if we're doing a 5-year plan, I would think it would be easier on taxpayers, especially seniors, to go raise it in small increments each year, like from 350, 375, 4, and then up to 425 in 2030, so that they know that it's a gradual increase instead of all of a sudden another $100 increase. But that would have to be the will of the table.
It would.
Do we want to have a motion now into that effect or not today?
Up to council.
No motions?
I don't know if we need a motion. I think we just have to think about it each year, because we haven't put some of them up every year, or have we, over the last year? And then we put sewer up and not water, or water up and not sewer. But, I mean, it is quite a drastic to 425. So this is only an estimation, too. So maybe that estimation should be changed, so that for 2027, it should say 350 in red, and then go up there every $25 every year.
And council can absolutely make those changes.
Can we
in
make a
those-
motion to change the red ones
Sure.
here, on here, to that, to go up $25 every year after 2026?
You can.
Okay, I make that motion.
So the motion is to change the sewer fund parcel tax starting in 2027
7,
to be increased by $50,
or,
$25, sorry,
yeah,
and $25 from that point onwards.
yeah.
With, obviously, for that to be the case, we would have to change the bylaw. But for budgeting purposes, that's what you'd like to see. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Sandhu, discussion.
We have very little reserve in our water and sewer. It's really pennies. And this is that account, is that correct? Like, in our documents. It's like
When you say
2,000
that account,
2,000 and something dollars, and I think that either the sewer or water, I can't quite remember which it was, but I've noted it's very, very low.
it is, yes.
And what does that money get used for?
Capital projects, like if we need to replace a sewer line or water line, we could use that money for that.
So when
We're
you
not gonna
look
get
at,
very
when you
far
look
with
at our reserves for snow removal, like what we don't use goes now, or did go into a reserve for equipment, is the two most important things in our community is water and sewer. And we have basically pennies in a reserve for these. And and I get we're worried about increasing this every year. But in my opinion, we've got a problem with this, that we need to have a better reserve on both of these functions.
May I share something with council? So under restricted reserve, which means you have to use it for the purposes that it was collected for. We have $479,547 for sewer, which is a DCC account. We have $1,466,013 for water, which is a DCC account. That's also a capital, it could be used for capital investment. Under unrestricted, for water, we have $9,974 for water general reserve, and sewer general reserve, $2,027.24.
I also had those concerns, but now we've got clarification that there's another fund for it. It makes more sense.
Still, the DCC stuff are restricted. The
Yep.
water and sewer stuff for unrestricted events, emergency situation is very low and would require some love and attention. Of course.
So there is, yeah.
So I just want to add to the DCC restricted funds. When we did the DCC increases, those monies can only be used what's in that document. There were certain items that were identified. That reserve money can only be used for that. We can't take it and just use it wherever. So keep that in mind. And I totally agree with Councillor Sandu. We have no money in those accounts. And we need to increase that. $2,000 in a water account, well, that's going to get us.
A hose.
So when we talk about restrictions from those DCC accounts, can you add more context to that on scenarios where we would need money for repair that we couldn't pull out of that?
So if it was in that document, like we had to identify areas where we needed upgrades, so that money can only be used in those locations.
So it's location specific?
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever in that document, yes.
Right.
In an emergency situation, we would use surplus or something to finance the work needed. But the point is made that water and sewer funds are inadequate at the moment. Yes.
There is a motion on the floor, if anyone would like to discuss that, which
There a
is,
seconder?
there was a seconder, it was Councillor Sandu. Yeah, we're good. Is there any discussion on that motion in particular?
Well, it was more of a comment. That's why I was thinking that if we add to it a little bit every year instead of waiting for 4 years, that's more money that's going into the fund earlier, and that it wouldn't be a hardship on taxpayers.
So to clarify, this is just us changing the figures tonight. We're not actually, we can't decide on what's going to be changed. So we are looking to change those amounts. Do you have the motion? Yeah. Do we want to do, at the moment, we're talking about sewer. That is the motion. Yep. So we'll call the question. All those in favor? That motion is passed. Mr. Thomas, can you get us back
Okay.
on track?
Absolutely. So still on page 21, budget highlights include sewer treatment plant project, I should say, is budgeted at $6 million in 2026 and $3.2 million in 2027, which covers 73% of the grant. And the town is responsible for the 20-odd% from its own sources of funds. It's not a 100% covered grant. The budget estimate includes parcel tax, which we just discussed. Sewer user rates increase will need to be determined by council starting in 2028, because that's when the data requires that. 5% increase have been used for information only purposes for the 2028 to 2030 in terms of the parcel tax. Moving on to page 22. This document highlights here again the sewer treatment capital upgrades, $6 million. Cost for the project, which covers the grant portion. Infiltration and inflow, $100,000 budget moved to operation. Previously was a capital item, but this is about maintaining the asset rather than acquiring new assets. General maintenance and sewer lagoon maintenance budgets increase in sewer fund. And again, this is more of the sewer operational fund, drilling down into exceptional detail for council. Any questions on this? Page 23, sewer and water fund capital projects for 25-26. So again, we went through the capital listing earlier. This information has already been discussed with council. If you have any questions, I'm open to them. Okay, seeing none, page 24, water fund. So this is the 5-year plan for the water fund. Again, I imagine council may have an interest in the parcel tax discussion here, but the highlights, the budget estimates do not include a parcel tax for 26 and 27. That's likely driven because of the bylaw that's in place for the parcel tax for water. Next year, water user fees for 2028 and future years will need to be set by council. Seems to be a typo there, but we need to look at the water rates. For information purposes, only 5% increase as shown in 2028 to 2030. The water rates, not the parcel tax. So the water user fees would have the water rates in them, and as you can see, they increase from 836, 200 in 2026, up to $1 million in 2030, 5 years from now. As you can see, these funds are running a surplus.
Just discussion on parcel tax.
Sure.
Councillor Vormarker.
I think that we should just address that at the same time as we're addressing the sewer parcel tax,
Sounds good.
if that's okay with the table. It's the same 350, 350, 350, and then it'll come to a point that the next council will have to do a large increase.
So the direction you're looking for is for us to increase these numbers on the budget for 2027 through 2030? Councillor Austin.
I was just going to say, I hadn't looked ahead to see that the waterfront parcel tax is higher than the sewer one. And we have more money in the water treatment one, do we not? The water fund?
We have
Down.
a few more thousand in the water, yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it needs to be as highly raised as the sewer. The sewer is probably more important than the water.
I guess I'll ask the question, all we're trying to do is just change these numbers of budgeting for 2027 through 2030. It doesn't really change anything, does it? Is this needed?
It is not needed for this fiscal year because the bylaw is already in place for those parcel tax rates. But if council does want to change the parcel tax rates in future years, we'll simply bring back a report and a new bylaw for you.
A review.
Okay with that?
Yeah. So would that be direction then to staff
Yep.
to review the water parcel tax?
So are you moving that?
Yes.
So the
So-
motion is for staff to review the parcel tax on the water and sewer fund. Is that correct?
Or the water fund?
Well, we've asked them to do the sewer fund as well. So do you want to add that to the motion?
Yes.
That is the motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Austin. Any discussion on that? Councillor Sandhu?
I'm going to vote against this only because I think we need to think longer term, and we're just kind of knee-jerk reacting right now. $25 from 2027 to 2030 is peanuts. I think we need to have a little bit better plan and discussion before doing that. So that's the only reason I'm voting against this at this time.
So the motion is for staff to review the amounts. It's not to set. It's not to set them, sorry. So it is just to review those numbers and come back to council with a report on what they think they should be. Good to answer the question. All those in favour? The motion is passed. Thank you.
Okay, page 25. The highlights here is that in 2025, the town contributed a one-time payment towards the installation of a new water reservoir, which will benefit the town, working in partnership with Sabasa First Nations. There is no significant other increases in this budget item. Any questions? Seeing none. Page 26 is a projection subject to the changes council made, projection subject to the completion of the 2025 audit and the numbers are finalized. A projection cash and reserve balances using the information as an update from the January meeting relative to what we're drawing down to fund the various projects, and that's what we are presenting here today. So at the end of the day, on the general global 30,000-foot document we looked at the beginning of our meeting tonight, we were drawing down $2 million. This is also reflected here, and I'm open to any questions council may have. And the contribution of $336,000. So the question council is going to be wrestling with or considering is, do you increase taxes in order to reduce the amount you're taking from reserve to fund your capital projects this year? That is effectively the question council will be considering. Right now, you're drawing down, you're adding $336,000 in the first table. You're drawing down $2,045,000, and that's at a 0% tax increase. But if you increase taxes, obviously the amount you're taking from reserve is going to be less. Or if you cut projects, the amount you're taking from reserve is going to be less. Okay?
And then also, so for reference, a 1% increase is equivalent to $30,000?
Roughly.
29 something?
That's correct. So if you flip to page 27, you can see the different options here. 2%, 3% for the rest of the remaining 4 years. Actually, what I will do is this. There's a summary at the back. I'll just take you to that summary. On page 31. This table shows you a 0% tax increase would mean the tax revenue from 2025 remaining unchanged. 2% would generate 58,000. 4% would generate 117,000. 6%, 176. 8%, 234.
So I guess what I'm struggling with is in past budgets, we've always been presented a percentage increase recommended based on our budget spending.
Yeah.
So this is actually based in how much we are taking from reserve.
Yes. A
So-
big portion of your reserve is for the purchase of assets, right? Like land acquisition. Usually land doesn't decrease in value. And there is a need for certain portions in order to fit for other major capital projects that we're working on at the moment. So in saying that, if we did not have that expense, you would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $800,000 worth of drawdown from reserve. But again, you as council can continue to modify, reduce your capital spend, reduce your operating spend, or defer projects in the future. That's the balancing act council is required to weigh in and direct us.
Usually there's a recommendation from staff. Is there a recommendation from staff on how much we should increase the budget this year?
We do not recommend zero. So that's the easy part. The rest is really a political decision. I would say somewhere between 2 and 6% would be ideal in the current fiscal year. 2 and 6.
Can I ask Councillor Sandhu, what was the mandate for the increase of the CVRD?
4%. And right now they're at 3.25.
So you're looking for someone to motion what increase we would like to see this year in the budget. Is there any discussion on that?
May I? The purpose of the tax increase would be to fund reserves, right? To add more to the reserve, or another way you could look at it, to take less from reserve for the current projects that we have this year. If council is very committed to having less of a tax burden for 2026, you can do less projects for 2026, but you're doing that eyes wide open with what we're not going to do. What I don't ever want to have happen is council feel or state that they are unaware what we're doing as administration. We're bringing the full details forward. We're asking you to tell us how you feel, what is the priority for council, and we adjust accordingly. Costs are going up for municipalities.
Councillor Sandhu?
I'd like to move a tax rate increase of 4% for the 2026 budget.
Seconded by Councillor Austin. Any discussion on that? I'll call the question. All those in favour? That motion is passed. That was easy, eh?
That was easy.
Yeah, why don't we just do that at the start?
You do have an in-camera portion of your meeting? So just so council is aware, what we'll do, we'll go back as staff and make those adjustments that you've asked us to do. We'll bring that back to you on the next meeting this month. See if you want to make any further changes, and then we'll ask you for direction to go out to the public to do public consultation and bring those changes back to council.
Okay. With that, we'll move on. Yep. So we've got no new business. Are there any notices of motion? Question period. There was no one in attendance, and we have not received any phone calls. So now we will move to in camera. I've got to read all this out, eh? I've got to read this all out? Awesome. Section 92 of the Community Charter requires that before a meeting or part of a meeting is closed to the public, the council must state by resolution that the meeting is to be closed, and B, the basis in which the meeting to be closed falls under the following sections of the Community Charter. S91C, labour relations or other employee relations. S91E, the acquisition, disposition, expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. S92, a part of council meeting must be closed to the public if the subject being considered relates to one or more of the following. B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations. 3, between the municipality and a First Nation or a prescribed Indigenous entity. or between a First Nation or a prescribed Indigenous entity and a third party. Do I have a motion to go on camera? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm missing some, aren't I? Do I have to add any to that? No? That is moved by Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor Vormarker. All those in favour? That is approved. We're going on camera. Thank you, everybody.